Okay, so what I was looking for is an add-on that you can use in Blender. It's called Screencast Keys. This plugin or add-on can be used to show or visualize all the user actions like the keyboard keys and also the mouse action. So it's very useful for online presentations. So it's basically makes it easier for you to follow what I'm doing. So you can download the latest version from this GitHub basically page here, and then you have to go to Blender. In Blender, it's an open source, as I said, and there are many add-ons and plugins that you can actually add to your project. So you need to go to Edit and then Preferences. Then we have something called add-ons, and then we go to Install, and then here we go to, I just have it on desktop. So screencast keys.zip. Then for example here I need to just press install this add-on. Now you would see it there. If you have done the installation, the only thing you need to do is to click or check here. Now we have it. So the next thing that you can do, or basically you need to do, is to go to first of all this tab windows or tabs windows, and here we have screencast keys, which basically you would see it if you have installed this add-on, and you need to check this. Now the next thing I would do, just here set region, and then press for example here, and just one moment, because now we see it. So basically this is the add-on, and what you see here basically visual representation of my mouse. And let me just make it bigger so you can actually see it. So now if I click for example my left click on my mouse, or right, or the middle, and basically this is what you see here, which is very good, I said, to follow me during this presentation. Also, if I press anything on my keyboard, you can see also the keys that I'm pressing. Okay. All right, so this is not important for you to have. It's very important to have if you are doing an online presentation, as I said, because you can follow, and if you are recording, you can follow what the steps that has been done. So basically, now we can move on. So Blender has these different basically windows that you can see. First of all, if you want to know what type of windows or basically are tools that you can have within Blender, you need to click either here. So every window has on the top left, as you can see, a corner like a drop down menu, like here or here. So this is a window, this is a window, this is a window, and this window. On all of them they have this drop down window, drop down list or menu. So if I do that, you can see all type of windows actually, or tools you can actually use within Blender. So now here, this one, it is called the 3D viewport, which is, it's basically representing the 3D scene. I can change it. We'll talk later about Python. So basically I can change it to Python console, and here I can write my Python code, for example, or script. So I would move to 3D viewport again. Now they, by default, they are basically this 1, 2, 3, 4 windows. We have the 3D port, and we have here the timeline, which is important for 3D animation. If you are familiar with other 3D animation tools, I don't know, like Adobe Flash or Adobe Premiere or any other 3D animation tool, you would always see this timeline. Here it is same case, and here we see the basically the outline, or the outliner here, where you see basically all the objects within the scene. So scene has multiple objects, and we see here that there are 3 objects. The one that is obvious is the cube, that this one. But we have also two other objects. We have a camera and the light. Now, also if you are familiar with 3D animation and 3D rendering, you need always to have cameras and lightness or illumination. And here we have these two. You can have multiple cameras or multiple light source. A camera and lights, they are considered as an object also within the scene. What I mean by object, they have, first of all, they are these common features, I would say, of object within the 3D viewport of Blender, which are here. So if you press basically N, if you don't see this by pressing N, and you can see it here always when I press, basically you would see it, it will be visualized, or you can click over this arrow here and also you would see it. Now what we are seeing here is as I said, this is features that are transformation features that are important for any kind of object within the scene. And in the robotic fundamentals we talked about this transformation, which are location, rotation, and scale. And this basically, these are in 3D graphics you would always see these three types of transformation or properties. And what we are seeing here, for example, the first one is called location, which basically represent the position of this object in the 3D environment. Now if I click over that cube, now I am seeing the location, rotation, and scale and dimension of that cube. Now first of all, maybe I forgot to tell you about this. You can select by the left mouse click, and this I told you about once we install this Blender, because you can select which button you can select an object. And here, for example, I can select the camera also with my left click and so on. I can zoom in and zoom down with basically the mouse wheel. I can drag this scene and rotate with my mouse by clicking the middle button here. And yeah, so you can also do the rotation using this, you can see sphere here, so I can do that rotation as well if I just click here inside that sphere and just rotate also, or move your mouse, and you can also control the scene or rotate the scene. What we see here, the 3D or the three axes, default axes, which are the X, Y, Z. So X always red, Y green, and Z blue. And if I click over X, I would see the scene. So basically it will be like this. So it would be 2D visualization from the X point of view, or basically from the X perspective. Now if I look from Y, it's basically from Y perspective, and also from top. Of course here it's all the same because we have a cube, we don't see any difference. You can always, if I press my middle mouse and move again, I can come back to the isometric or the default view or 3D view. I can also do the drag. So one way to do the drag, basically, as I said, is by pressing the middle mouse, and or also this is basically to drag the scene, so you can basically drag the whole scene left and right without rotation by just pressing over this hand there. So which is also, you can do it with your keyboard and mouse by pressing shift. You can see here basically shift and the middle button basically of your mouse. And here we see also zoom in, zoom out, which is representing just the mouse scroller or mouse wheel. Another way to change the viewport is to go under view. Here we have viewpoints or viewport, and basically you go to top. You can change to, and you can see here they have the key basically. So the numpad 7 would take you to top. Then here in my on my Mac, basically I need to click option, then numpad 7 to go to the bottom. Then front, back, right, left, and camera is, if you select camera, you would see the scene from the camera perspective. As I said, there is a camera here, right? And this camera has some, of course, view angle. So if we go here into the properties, I'll talk about this window later, but if now just to explain what I'm seeing there. Of course, we have basically the focal length of the camera. There could be other features that you can actually change, like the depth of field and so on, and the viewport display. What we are seeing here is the camera limits, or basically camera window, which is basically what you see in between this yellow rectangle there. So again, you can come back to the normal scene, and you can see that whenever I moved, I just changed my basically viewport to the normal again, and this is the camera basically view that we can control later, as I said, to increase, for example, the view angle, and which means increasing the rectangle of the scene. Okay, so these are different viewports. Yeah, let's go back to the properties. So if I click here over an object, I will see this location, rotation, and scale, and so on. Now there are different ways to change that basically features or properties. So first, if you hover over one of them, you would see that you can actually click over it and then go left or right with your mouse. And by doing that, you are actually moving the object, and while you are moving the object, of course, you can see that under the location, that location is changing. Now I can put here, of course, the value itself. So can I click, then I put, let's say, 5 meters along the x-axis, so it will move along the red, which is the x-axis, or for example 3 meters along the y-axis. But also I can do it like this, right? So Z, same. I can also do the rotation around X, Y, Z scaling. Now there's something about scaling you notice is that we have here dimension of the object, which is here in meter as a unit. So we can change the unit later, I will show you. This basically, you can change the dimension of the object in two ways, either by changing the dimension itself or by changing the scale. Okay, so there's also one thing to consider, that now if I want to go back to the default features, or basically location, rotation, and scale, I can click or right click over basically this window, which is a location sub window, and then I can select something called reset all to default values. If I reset all, I will select all XYZ location to the default. If I reset single, I'll only reset X, because X actually what I pressed on. So I want to reset all to the default position. Then here right click, also reset all to default, and here we have a default anyway. Now there are two other ways actually to do to change location and rotation. The first one, here on the left side, we see these tools. We are in the default select box tool, or the selection tool, where we can select with a different object. We have here something else called move, and if I click over move, then we would see first you need to select an object. So for example, I have to select this object, then I click move. You would see the X, Y, Z axis, and if I press over this axis and I drag it, I can now move the object along X, Y, Z, or actually I can move it along a plane. So here we see also 3D planes. The same here, we have rotation. So first let me select an object and go to rotation. I guess if you click rotation, you can also select directly. You don't need to do that. So here you can see we have 3 circles. We have the green, red, and blue. And if I basically press over the red or the green here, I am rotating around the y-axis, and the red, of course, x-axis, and blue is z-axis. If I am pressing basically around this sphere, then it basically depends on, it's a 3D. You can see that you are rotating all 3 together. This is basically, you can do also the scaling, of course. Here on the left, before moving to the third way of doing scaling, rotation, and so on, we have other tools. So we have Annotate is just to write, for example, something around this object, just to annotate or label it if you are interested in printing it, maybe, or maybe it's important in the 3D rendering to show this annotation. But also a useful tool is the measurement. So you can measure distance between 2 points. For example, I can click over the first position, then you need to drag to measure the distance between 2 points, for example. This could be useful. For me, I don't use it that much, because if you are designing the scene, you know the distance between points. But maybe if you are uploading, I don't know, scene or object that are designed by others, then maybe you can measure, but also you can always know the dimension. So sometimes it's useful, but not really that often is useful. So yeah, so now the third way to do this manipulation or transformation, let me back to the default first, is by now using hotkeys on your keyboard. So if you press S on your keyboard, so first select an object, press S, then if you press S, you see first you get this scaling basically symbol, and now by moving your mouse up and down, you are scaling this object up and down. And this is basically scaling, isometric scaling, so basically scaling along X, Y, Z together with the same rate. Now I can do, if I want to just undo, just press escape, or to basically to cancel the scaling, just press escape. Now if I want to scale only along the X axis, I can press now, I just always look at what I'm pressing here, so I can press S, then X, let me repeat, S then X. Now first of all, you would see this red line, which basically representing the X axis. Now if you're moving your mouse, you are always scaling up or down along the X axis. I can do SY, same, and SZ, for example. So for scaling, we have S as a hotkey, and then we have then S, then the axis. Now the last thing we could do also is not only is SX, but also, for example, I can put the value. So I can press S, then scale along X with the value of 2, and then press enter, so it will take it as a 2, as you see here. Okay, so you press, for example, SY4 and enter, then it will basically scale it to 4. So if we go back to default, you can now, of course for rotation, you can do it by R. You press R on your keyboard. Same as scaling, you can also add R, then X, which means rotation around X axis, then the value, for example, 30 degrees, then enter. And the last thing is basically is how you can so let me check here. So you can, I just forgot what was the hotkey. It's G, as you can see. Yeah, so I want to select that and press G, and I can move that object along X, Y, and Z. Now, yeah, so it's basically the hotkey that you can use to change or to do the transformation. Next is the units. As I said, we have here unit in meter. I can play with that unit, of course. If I don't, so basically what we see here is it's the properties window, so which is actually this one. So this is, yeah, represent general properties of an object. If no object is selected, then basically it has the property of the whole scene or world, it's called. Now if I go here, I think it was yeah, under scene properties, under units, I have here the unit system. For example, now we are using the metric unit system. You can use the imperial, of course, and there you can choose the units that you want to use. For example, for the length, here we have a meter. I can change it to centimeter, for example. You can see it here. We have rotation in degree, time in second. Also we have gravity, where we have here the standard gravity that you might change if you want, for example, to other type of properties that will be used in the game, in the physical engine of Blender if you are simulating physics. Alright, so this basically we have seen now these 2 or 3 windows. We have seen how we can manipulate. There's something very important in Blender, which is it is used to call the 3D cursor, but now it's called the cursor, which is we can see it here as a second tool, and we see it here at this red circle. So if I just move my object away, we see that we have a red circle there. Now, first of all, if you click over this cursor and then you click anywhere inside this scene, you see that this cursor would follow your mouse. Now this cursor is used in Blender as a reference point, so it has many use cases. One of the use cases when you have a reference point is when you want to place an object or create an object or even upload an object, then it will be placed or located in that position. Now how to, for example, add an object in Blender. Now if I go under here, add, there are different objects or basically object that I can add, and the standard mesh object you can see here. So we have, for example, cube, plane, circle, and so on. Let me add here the default 3D object. It's called monkey here, or monkey face, or monkey head. And this basically, you can see it was placed in the position of the 3D cursor. Now if I move it again here, then add mesh, for example, I can add a sphere, then it will be added at that location. Okay, so this we will use it later for other use cases, but this is one of the use cases where you can actually locate objects at certain position. Now if you click here under view, you could see the location of that 3D cursor, which actually is here. It's called 3D cursor. And basically, if you can, for example, if you want to set it in numbers, for example, I can put here 10, and this is the rotation as well, which is important because let me, for example, if I put the rotation, I don't know, 45, and then now add again that monkey, then you can see it took the transformation also of this 3D cursor. So not only the position but also rotation, which is different from rotation that it took here. Okay, so yeah, this is one feature that is very useful. Now selection, also you have different type of selections. We have seen only the simple one, which is by clicking over an object. I can first select everything within the scene by pressing A, and pressing basically A, you can select everything. Then if you press anywhere in the scene, you deselect. Okay, then there are other two, or basically if you click here and you basically keep clicking or you hold, you would see different type of selections. We have the select box, select circle, and select lasso, and this basically they are used to select multiple objects. For example, I can press select box, and by its name you can know it's box selection, which means if I now click and hold, then move my mouse, I am creating a box or triangle. Now all the objects that intersect with that triangle would be selected. For example, like this, I would have a circle or the sphere and the cube as selected. So I can press anywhere again to deselect, and for example I can do that again and select now 3 objects and so on. Now there is a hotkey for box selection. If I go back to Twig, for example, and I press B, so just to see this one, so if I press B, I can do that selection. Okay, now the second type, or basically the third after the standard one, is a circle selection, which is the same, but here basically everything intersect with the circle would be selected. Now the difference here circle, you don't create a window, but actually you can scale this circle down or up. So if I do that, if you, for example, press over the circle first, then you can press over the circle, then you can move your scroller or your mouse down or up, and by moving up you are selecting, you can see different object. Now if you go here and press C, which is basically the hotkey for a circle, if you press C you can see, and then scroll, you can also scroll up and down, and then you can press for example your left, and then you would select that object, then select this one. You can always scroll it down and up if you start with the C by pressing C on your keyboard. Lasso is basically the third one, which I don't use it that often, but basically there where you create curves, and by creating curves also you can select everything that intersect with that curve. Alright, so I will just stop here just to reduce the size of the video, then I will continue the next video. Thank you.